get started. We are also going to videotape this and hopefully download it to YouTube. So for those of your friends that aren't in today, they could probably will have that link attached to our Google Classroom so they can see this live as well, okay? Or at least see a copy of that. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce our mountain man. This is exciting. He's been coming here 15 years, I think, coming just for third grade. And in fact, our school is the only school in the entire district that is actually doing a live chat with this mountain man. So I'm going to let him introduce himself. He's brought lots of things that are worth thousands of dollars for you to see. That is rare. So if you want to, just sit back and look, and you'll get a chance to re-see this later once we attach it. So I'll give him to you.
Good morning. My name is Earl Duncombe. I live up in Hyde Park. And like Mrs. Curtis says, I've been doing this for her school for quite a while. I've been doing it for other schools in the district for almost 30 years. So the collection I have, I got started when I was in scouting, and a lot of this stuff I have bought, a lot of it I have traded for, and I'll try to answer a lot of the questions that are asked of me in other years, so as that you're going to have to listen very carefully so as you can hear and understand what I'm about to do. Now, the clothes that I have on, this is just a cotton shirt. There are plastic buttons on it. The trappers and mountain men didn't have plastic. They didn't have Walmart. They didn't have Shopko. They didn't have Circle K. They didn't have any of these special places to go to get stuff. They went to the rendezvous to get it. And the word rendezvous is a meeting. It is a place where the mountain men would meet. They would meet once, twice, maybe 3 times a year, sometimes in the spring, sometimes in the fall. They would talk to each other. They would trade with each other. They would buy their items such as sugar, flour, anything that they needed to take back into the hills with them. And here in Cache Valley, we're very lucky because the word cache is also one of those words. It's a French word that means a hiding place, a cache. And this is where they would hide their pelts, hide their hides, and store their stuff so as that nobody could find it. Hopefully nobody could find it. Animals would stay out of it and stuff like that. So what I'm going to start with is I'm going to start with what the trappers and mountain men were after. They were after this guy right here. This is a beaver. It is stretched the traditional way. This is called the flesh side. This is the hair side. This is the side with the hair on them. They would use these for clothing. They would use them to make hats out of them. They're very soft. And this was stretched round on a willow. And then they would take them. Some of them would tan. Most times they would just send them in green. That means untanned. And they would send them off to the fur buyers and stuff like that. Now, in today, the people who raise beaver, this is how you would find the beaver. This is just the hide. Again, the hair side, the flesh side, and these are very soft. They're real heavy hair. There's long hair on it called guard hair, and the short hair down underneath is just real heavy, thick hair. Now, these hides come in all different colors. Here's a blonde, and this is a much smaller hide. This one is a black. This has been bleached to come blonde like this. The black ones have been dyed to turn black. You can see when this one was tanned, it was put on chicken wire to be dried, and that's what these little marks are on the back of the hide. This one was commercially tanned. These have all been commercially tanned. You can see the tanner's mark on this one. These hides cost about between $30 and $60 if you go to a rendezvous to buy one. And you can buy them at the rendezvous. Now what the trapper and mountain men used, they used a trap, a double spring trap very similar to this. This one was used by a trapper out in Snowville, Utah. These have a big springs on them. It's called a double spring trap. They're set over the knee, down like this. If you get your finger caught in it, it will break your finger. This is what they look like set. If you are walking along rivers, ditch banks, in swamps and stuff like that, and you see a trap, it is not yours. You don't pick it up, you don't take it home. Each of these traps have a number. They belong to a registered trapper. And if you don't know how to do one of these, you got to be very careful, because if you get your finger in there, it will break your finger. Now today, the trappers use a body gripping trap like this one. This is a square trap. And these springs, you have to have a special tool to set these traps. These are the springs that I'm holding on to right here. You have to have a special tool to pull them together. When this trap is set, the beaver would swim through them and hit the trigger here. And it keeps them submerged underwater, so as the beaver cannot come to the surface. The beaver will hold their breath. If this doesn't kill them automatically, we call it dispatch the animal, then the beaver will hold its breath until it passes out. Okay? So, just remember, if you see a trap, they will be staked down. Do not mess with that trap. If your finger was in there, it will break your finger. The conibear, the big square one, it will break your arm if your arm were in there. So you have to be really, really careful. Now, other animals that live here in our valley, these are muskrats. These are the ones that live in the ditches. These are just small muskrats. It looks just like beaver pelts. It is smooth. They use them for the same thing they use beavers for. We have mink. This is a mink that was trapped here in Cache Valley. This is a spotted skunk. This is an adult spotted skunk. And the males are about this size. The females are a little bit smaller. This was trapped on the south end of Cache Valley out by Paradise. All these animals that I'm going to show you, or most of them, I'll tell you the ones that aren't here in Cache Valley. But most of these animals are in Cache Valley. This is a badger. He has long claws. He digs deep holes. This is a fairly small badger, but the color you can see, badgers are very, very mean. Here's the regular skunk, what we call the striped skunk. You will see skunks occasionally that are brown. They aren't all black and white. You may see one brown and white. This is a raccoon. We have a lot of raccoons here in Cache Valley. A lot of raccoons. This is part of an old mink coat that was given to me, and my wife is a doll maker. And she uses these pieces of mink hide, and if you look at the back here, the only thing they use is to strip down the back of the mink. Everything else becomes waste. So that's why if you buy a mink coat, they're extremely expensive, because they only use small pieces of that mink. And this is different colored. This is actually the bottom end of the coat. This was an old coat that somebody had been given to him, and she gave it to my wife. A friend of mine gave it to my wife, and it had been worn so much that it's just about worn out. It is worn very thin. Here in Cache Valley, we have a number of dogs. This is a coyote. We have coyotes right here, right in Nibley. We have them in Paradise, Hyde Park, Smithfield. We have red fox. And the redder they are, the prettier they are. Now this is all used for clothing. The mountain men would trap these, they would trade them. This is a kit fox, and in Utah, we don't have any here in northern Utah. These are down in southern Utah. It is against the law to trap kit fox. There's another gray fox, which is about twice the size of this kit, and that's where you find the nice gray color. This is an Arctic fox. We have these in Utah. They are not native to Utah. These have been brought in. They are ranch raised. They're raised on a farm. And this is just one of those pretty pelts that you can pick up at a rendezvous. We also have bobcats. Now the bobcat looks just like, there's two different ones here. One is actually a lynx, and the lynx has great big fluffy feet. It looks like a bobcat. Its coloring is very similar. We do not have any lynx in the state of Utah that are native. But we do. This bobcat was trapped out in Paradise. We do have bobcats, and the year that this was trapped, bobcat pelts were bringing about $600 for a pelt, and that's why the guys that trap go after them. They're very expensive. A lynx like this is probably worth closer to $1,000. These come out of Canada and Alaska. Now the trappers and mountain men would take and they would have deer hides. This is my shirt. This is made out of deer hides. Now the only animal that I have shot that I have here is the buck that is on the back side of this shirt. This is what they call a Native American war shirt. There are no buttons on this. There are no plastic buttons. There are no bone buttons. The buttons that I do have on here are made of leather. It is all sewn together, and it is open all down the bottoms of the sleeves and down the sides. I can stick my hand out just about anywhere. The only places where it's not is where it's tied, because these hides are very warm. If I was wearing this in here, I would be sweating right now. But this is my war shirt. It's made out of two deer hides, and these were rather large deer. Now my pants are leather pants. I do have buckhorn buttons or deer horn buttons, deer antler buttons, and this is cowhide. This is really thick, so that it'll last me a long time. Now, can you wash stuff like this? Yes, you can wash it, but the mountain men didn't wash it. They just wore it and wore it and wore it. If they got in a river or a lake and whatnot, that's how they washed it. Now, this is a piece of elk hide, and elk hide is thicker. It looks the same, but it's thicker than deer hide. Now, when I get deer hides and I have them tanned, I don't throw any of my scraps away, because the scraps are used for different things, like this cover right here, or the buttons. And I had an old-time mountain man show me how to make the buttons. So this is sewn together with artificial sinew. An artificial sinew is nylon thread. This is a roll that you can buy at any of the handicraft shops. The thing about artificial sinew is this stuff is extremely strong. I make necklaces out of it. I use it to sew together all my projects that I'm working on, whether it's pants or shirts or whatever. It's held together with artificial sinew. And the tighter you pull on this, all it's going to do is cut into your hands and stuff like that. I've never found a student, and I've never been able to break just one strand of it. It is extremely strong. Now we not only had mountain men, but we had mountain women. And a woman wears a little bit different clothing in the mountains than the men do. This is a dress that has started. It is not finished. This is for a young lady. This is called a two-skin. There is a deer hide on the front and a deer hide on the back. Now, is this the front or is this the front? It's a two-skin hide. It doesn't matter. You'd put a tie. It has a hole for the neck right here. You'd put a tie on each side to pull in where the collar is. This would be cut into fringe on both sides, and then there would just be a loop through it. And so you are the pattern for this. There's no place you can buy the pattern for a two-skin. Now a three-skin is the same thing as this, only there's one full skin over the top, and so it gives you longer lace, more protection, stuff like that. These were the items that were made and traded at the rendezvous. Now the guy that was in charge of the rendezvous, he was called the bourgeois. That means the boss. He had a second man in charge called a segundo. The segundo would take care of all the little stuff, and then they had the cops that run around there, and they were called dog soldiers. So you had different people at the rendezvous doing different things. It wasn't just a free-for-all for everybody. It was very organized. They were there for a reason. So these items the artificial sinew, I told you it was covered with wax. This is beeswax. You can chew this just like gum, but it's put on the string to hold the string together. This is a young man's shirt. This is a war shirt. The same as that, like mine. And this one has a lot of fringe on it. And I made this for one of my sons when he was in the 3rd grade. And neither one of them come anywhere close to even fitting in this. Usually a 3rd grader's pretty close. This is a breechcloth. Now the breechcloth is what the young men would wear. The size of the breechcloth is thumbs together, little fingers out. That's how wide my breechcloth would be. How long it would be from fingertip to fingertip. So mine would be about 6 foot tall. And the way the breechcloth is worn, and this breechcloth is made out of 3 different pieces of elk hide that were just scraps that we made into the breechcloth. This was made for my brother. It's worn with a belt or a rope around the waist. It goes underneath and up the back. My shirt would cover it, and I would not have any leggings on if I was wearing this. Now, I call this the mountain man diaper, and only the boys would wear these. This is a pair of pants that belonged to my brother. These have wooden buttons on them in the front. These were sewn together on a sewing machine. My mother made them for my brother when he was in Scouts. And when my brother grew tall, he didn't grow out and round like me. He grew tall. We would just add a piece on the bottoms of them, and so you'd have 2 or 3 layers of fringe, and that's when you grew. You just add it to the bottom. When the young ladies grow, you just add another piece to the bottom of their dress, and they'd have a row of fringe cut. So this stuff was not thrown away. It was handed down from brother to brother and sister to sister, father to son. This stuff is very, very durable. The hides are very durable. The rendezvous. They would trade at the rendezvous. What they would trade is the white men had a lot of neat stuff. They had tacks. These are brass tacks. This is a tack belt made for a young person. It doesn't fit me. It doesn't even come close to fitting me. So this was made for one of my sons. I have two of these. When the boys decide they want them. And the way you keep your tacks bright is you wear them. And if you roll it up like this one was and they get dirty, all you do is run it on your leg and it makes the tacks come really shiny. The tacks were sold in little bags or in handfuls or by the gross, and a gross is 144. And then the buckles are brass buckles with just laces to hold it together. One of the big items that the mountain man had that the Native Americans didn't and they used at the rendezvous were beads. These are seed beads. I have a lot of examples of seed beads. This is a loom, and you can buy these at the hobby store. You can buy the beads. They come in different sizes. These are number 11s. Number 10s and 11s are the easy ones to work with. This is a pair of beaded moccasins for my wife. These moccasins, to go buy these, is $300 for a pair of moccasins. Now, there's all different designs. The moccasins I have on my feet were made specifically for me. A guy from Brigham City named Rio Pacheco. He is a Shoshone Indian from Idaho. He made them for me. He told me I had the biggest feet he's ever made moccasins for. But the seed beads were a big trade item. Other items they made out of seed beads. This is a small leather pouch with a cross on it. This is the symbol of the missionary. Here's a belt buckle. This is one of the belt buckles I bought for my wife a long time ago. And it is just feathers. It is a round belt buckle. The belt buckles come in all different shapes. This is a belt. This belt tells a story. We did some research on this belt, and the style of beadwork is called applique. This is a woman's belt, and this tells the story of her family. Each one of the symbols, like this one right here, is a child. The very colorful ones are boys, so those are males, and the plain ones are for females. Now, she had 7 children, 2, 4, 6, 7, 8. She had 8 children. And this belt is applique beadwork, and it was dated back to about 1929, so it is after the turn of the century. But to get a belt like this now, I think I paid $300 for this about 35 years ago. A belt like this now is well worth over $1,000. Other seed beaded items. Here's a buffalo belt buckle. This is a belt buckle with the buffalo on it, and they're quite expensive to get. This is a knife sheath. This is crow style beadwork on this, and there is a knife in here. Now there's nobody here to look at it. This is called a dagger. It is double edged. Both edges on this knife are sharp. Now I have to tell everybody that I had to get special permission to bring some of this stuff to school. If you were here, some of this stuff I would let you handle, but there's a lot of this stuff you would not be able to handle. Okay? This is a pair of moccasins. And I thought I'd silence that. Is that mine? Yep. Okay. It's in my pants. I took and bought these at Deseret Industries. I bid on them, and I did not win the bid. I was the second bidder. They are a pair from the Shoshone tribe up in Blackfoot, Idaho. What happened is the lady that won the bid on them, when she got to look at them closely, there was a hole in the sole of the one moccasin. So she decided she did not want them. This is what the other sole looked like. I just made a new sole for the one moccasin, and all she would have had to do was take and cut a piece and put it inside the shoe, and it would have been a patch, and she could have worn the moccasins. But I give $13 for the pair of moccasins. So you never know what you're going to find at the DI. Trade items. Deer horns. Every deer that I ever shot, I have the antlers to them. I keep them. One of these days, I'm going to make something out of them. This one was a shed that I found on the ground. This one will one day be a knife handle. I'll cut it off right up here, put a blade in it, and it'll become a knife handle. This is what the trappers and the mountain men had. They had metal knives, which the Native Americans did not. They were traded. These are Russell blades. These are a very popular blade. They make a very popular knife. So the white men would trade these to the Native Americans for rabbit hides. They would trade for beaver hides. They would trade for just about anything. And like I say, handles for them can be made out of just about anything. What the Native Americans did have is they had rocks. This is a piece of flint. It has a piece of yucca wood with artificial sinew and pine sap holding the blade in the knife. This is today, if you go to the rendezvous, they'll take a coyote jawbone, and this does not feel good on your hands. But it's a nice piece of flint wrapped with it's got a piece of leather that is glued down to make a fancy looking knife. Here is a piece of ribbon obsidian, very sharp. Obsidian is nature's glass with a piece of elk antler. And this has pine sap or pine tar holding it together. Here's a piece of black obsidian with a piece of elk antler as a handle. These knives were worn on their hips. They would carry them in a little pouch around their neck. They could carry them just about anywhere. But this is what the Native Americans had. What the white man had is they had trade beads. These trade beads come from Africa. These are blue glass trade beads, green glass, these are skunk beads. These are red skunks. They have white spots on them. And these beads are old beads. These are made around 1850 is when these beads come out of Africa. This is an old strand of black and white skunk beads. This is 1860 is about the date on that. And then there are all kinds of chevron beads. These beads are glass beads made in Africa. And I talked to a gentleman from Ethiopia this last January, and he says nobody in Ethiopia is making chevron beads anymore. So what's here in the United States is about what there is available. This is an old strand I bought at a rendezvous. The lady needed some money to buy gas to get home. I give her $100 for this strand. And I've always taken care of them, but I made a mistake and dropped them. And I chipped that one bead. So I went looking for that one bead to replace it. And one bead now of these old 7-layer chevrons is $300. $300. So that's a strand I don't pass around, but that's a good example of what trade beads are, and I've got all kinds of trade beads. These are current manufacturer chevrons. The price tag on this strand was $2,500. I didn't pay that much for them. These are called watermelon chevrons. These are current manufacturer, but they're, like I say, they're not making them anymore. The price tag on these watermelons, it's still on here, is $1,750. $1,750. These beads are not cheap. Most people will cut these strands and sell them one bead at a time. I'll keep these all together, being as I bought them all together. So these beads are getting tougher and tougher to come by. That's why when I seen them, I bought them. I usually ask how many of you have seen Jurassic Park. And if you've seen Jurassic Park, I see some hands going up there. They found the mosquito in amber. It is resin, it is petrified resin, and this is called butterscotch amber. Now I give $1 a bead for this strand right here. I had to pick them out of 2 big trunks, and I saw a strand this year down in Tucson for sale for $700. The same size strand, same beads. This is red amber. It almost sounds like plastic, but it's not. This is amber out of Tibet. Tibet is above China. These are just small beads. All these beads are made by hand. These are necklaces, and this is all called butterscotch amber. So you can see there's all different styles. There's a little button on each one of these to make them a necklace. I was going to cut them apart and make my own necklaces out of them, but the more I look at them, the more I like them just the way they are. So I'll never do anything with them. I'll just leave them right the way they are. So there were all types of trade beads that they had. These are some trade beads that are pink. They are actually rose quartz. They made pink Padre beads and stuff like that. Very difficult to find them, very expensive to buy them. Green white hearts, blue white hearts, and these are a 2-layer bead. They have a white center on them and a color on the outside. Now I'm all tangled up. How did I do that? This strand of beads, these are some red Padre beads. I have some white bone beads on them, white Padre bone beads, and then I just have some red glass beads. And these were all made in Africa. White Padre beads, which are extremely difficult to find, and these are made out of bone. These are just blue glass beads. And all you do with these is you make one big long strand out of them. You can make a necklace out of this. You can make a bracelet out of it. All you do with them, and you can buy these at the hobby store. They come in blue and black. Some of them are white. You just keep taking the strands and work them. And these are a little bit bigger than seed beads. They string a lot easier than seed beads, and they're real fun to work with. These are old white hearts, red colored white hearts with bone beads. And then this necklace is a stone that's only found in 2 places in the world. This stone is called petersite. Okay? This necklace is worth about $600. There's $600 worth of stones. These stones are actually made in China. They are all handmade and hand polished. So you have to be real careful and know what you're buying, or you can get taken to the cleaners on them.